Well, Colleen, do you think we're about ready to get started? We probably don't have the full number of senators, but I assume we have quorum.
Yeah, we have quorum, so I can just add people as they come in.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, welcome everyone to the October 15th Faculty Senate meeting. It's good to see all of you here, and we'll go ahead and get started with the roll call.
All right. Barber?
Here.
Barrett?
Here.
Boumanier?
Here.
Branyon?
Here.
Brandenburg?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Carmack?
Here.
Chambliss? Chong?
Here.
Corley?
Here.
Hong for Deweese?
Here.
Edelman?
Here.
Elman?
Here.
Urban?
Here.
Evans?
Here.
Fuentes?
Here.
Galt?
Here.
Gordon?
Here.
Neely for Graffius?
Here.
Wood for Green?
Here.
Hadley?
Here.
Hester?
Here.
Ivory?
Here.
Harapasmino? Kellison?
Here.
Khan?
Here.
Kimbrell? Nice?
Here.
Sung Lee?
Here.
Chung Lee?
Here.
McKinnon?
Here.
Mason?
Here.
Mitchell?
Here.
McClenny?
Here.
McLean?
Here.
Rollins for Nickel?
Here.
Nori?
Here.
Olivieri?
Here.
Pisani?
Here.
Pinko? Richter?
Here.
Oh, hope you're not sick. Scullin? Self?
Here.
Scott? Oh, I got you. Scott Meyer?
Here.
Shoemake?
Here.
Snipes?
Here.
Morris for Swift?
Here.
Sykes?
Here.
Talbot?
Here.
Tawidi?
Here.
Wee?
Yes. Here.
Williams?
Here.
Wofford? Yoder? All right, we're well in quorum.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well, I don't see President Kelly in on this call. So unless there are no objections, we'll go directly to the report from the provost. Dr. Preston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope the semester continues to go well for you. Thank you for your time and service on Faculty Senate. And I know that we are in the latter half of the semester, so I hope all of your students are doing well and looking forward to finishing up the semester strongly for each of them in all of the classes. I am happy to bring some updates on behalf of Academic Affairs in the Office of the Provost. First of which I'd like to give an update on the announcement that you saw earlier this week with respect to Georgia Highlands and how we are serving students in Douglasville. There are approximately 135 students that are at the Georgia Highlands College site in Douglasville. And as the announcement was made, they are vacating that site. And so we are going to be assisting, allowing those students to be transient students, co-advising those students, and making sure that they are supported as part of, as partner institutions within the University System of Georgia. One of the benefits of being in a state system is that we can step in and assist each other in serving students holistically. And so we will certainly be doing that, working with our advising and Center for Academic Success to make sure that those students get what they need to complete their degrees at Georgia Highlands, or for any student that wishes to, make sure that they have the opportunity to transfer to, or to continue in kind of a 2+2 and join us here at UWG. Really, it's about ensuring continuity for all of those students and crosswalking them. Additionally, I had a fantastic 2 days at the Board of Regents earlier this week. West Georgia was well represented there with the new degrees that were approved, and we will be working on all the materials and get those to SAC COC so that we can start advertising and begin those programs in earnest fall of 2022. I want to again thank the Faculty Senate, GPC, UPC, and all of the faculty curricula groups within school and college, as well as departments, for working on those and reviewing them. I think they're incredibly strong and will serve many new students at UWG well. Commend you all for your continued work. I'm getting some updates in Zytrax on progress after Q1 concluded at the end of September. We've got some great work moving towards our comprehensive analysis of programs, moving from those strategic priorities at a university level to scorecard elements, to specific blueprints that each of the units have, not just within academic affairs, but across the university. Of course, we're focused on moving the needle and making progress in academic affairs, and those involve and are operationalized within these 90-day sprints that each academic unit is conducting. So we're getting results from that and positive movement, and it's a great way for continuous improvement and advancing the university well. Also want to give an update. I know there was a lot of interest on the summer camp, so thank you for all the faculty who have submitted ideas, and those have percolated up. Your deans have represented those well, and working towards offering those next summer. We've got about 6 usable weeks given the other high school and middle school calendars, as well as the UWG calendar. We'll be offering a comprehensive set of summer camps, and that's really a way for our faculty expertise, augmented with undergraduate and graduate assistance, to offer these camps, and a great way to serve the community, middle school and high school students that we would love to bring on campus and have them have an amazing experience in these camps, and then imprint upon them why West Georgia is such a great place. And really, it's a long recruitment cycle to bring them and hopefully have them join us for their studies when they graduate high school. So again, thank you for everyone who's submitted ideas. We're going to be creating a kind of a teaser document and then working on details in anticipation of a great summer next year. Another thing I'd like to point out and commend folks on is that looking at our waitlist process, I know that we are upping our game in that regard and making sure that we are leveraging waitlists to understand student demand better and offer more sections of courses or adjust as needed. And one of the things that stood out was that when you look at how the waitlist is presented to students, it lists the total number of open slots rather than the number of students that are already on that waitlist. It's a bit confusing. So if a student sees a number 30, they might think, well, there's 30 people ahead of me. So we've modified how that will be presented to students going forward to clarify to them that what you're going to be seeing when you look at that schedule of courses are how many people are on the wait list, and we're going to be able to let students sign up on the wait list if a course is full and get a better indication of opening sections and what the likelihood of them getting into that section will be. Also want to commend all of the faculty for their scholarship and research and creative activity. Like to brag on West Georgia that we have already achieved at the end of Q1 on par the number of external grants submitted and awarded that we had in all of the last fiscal year. So we are on track for a significant increase in our research, scholarship, and creative activity and the productivity. So I want to commend everyone who's been working hard already early in the year to really advance that at the university. I know that Dr. Akins is going to be providing some details to us. I see the agenda on the QEP and the SACS COC reaffirmation update. She'll also give some updates on the Office of Education Abroad. And so with that, I would just like to turn it over to her to give some updates on that QEP process. For my part, I'll say this is a robust part of shared governance, and she and I both look forward to a really strong, open, and transparent opportunity for faculty to submit great ideas that we will review, and we will have an opportunity, as I've mentioned at the last Faculty Senate meeting, for these proposing groups to present their ideas for the QEP that ultimately the university will adopt. So the timeline is solicit ideas, present those early spring, make a selection, and then keeping us on track with the SACS COC schedule to start implementing and launching that QEP next calendar year. We've also got an update on the SACS COC faculty representative. So appreciate the Faculty Senate and the Faculty Senate Executive Committee for helping through that process. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Akins to provide further updates on SACS COC and QEP.
Well, thank you, Dr. Preston. Appreciate that. Dr. Akins, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Preston. Thank you, Dr. Williams. The material that I'm going to refer to is in the addendum, and it is also currently on the shared screen. So thank you, Dr. Vasconcelos, for supporting this. I will start first with the kind of reminder that we are entering the final stretch to our decennial reaffirmation process, and the upcoming couple of years will be very busy for us. Next year, 2022, there will be two large opportunities for faculty involvement, working on the quality enhancement plan and working on the standards for the reaffirmation. First, I would like to thank Dr. Morris, who is, as we speak, working on the survey or request for proposals that we would like to send out to all faculty by the end of this month. In addition, there is a plan to invite the Institutional Planning Committee of the Faculty Senate to provide feedback on the survey that will be prepared prior to submission. So we achieve full transparency and as broad faculty participation as possible. You will see the note that the request for proposal will be based on SACS COC related documents. In a way, we would like to apply so to say, a reverse engineering to include in the very front end in the solicitation the criteria that we will be judged on later in the process. So we will have that broad perspective from the very beginning. In December, we would like to form a working group to review the QEP proposals. And that working group will be developing further detailed rubrics for the review. A broad faculty participation will be solicited, and the deans will have also an opportunity to nominate faculty for service on this working group. Currently, the deadline to submit QEP proposals from faculty is January 17th. So there are a couple and a half, 3 months for each and every faculty who would like to submit a proposal to be ready for that. If a proposal by any chance would be coming from a non-academic unit, the requirement would be that that unit partners with an academic program in order to submit a QEP proposal. So we want to be open to all opportunities for submission, yet this is still a faculty process. In January and February of next year, the working group will review the QEP proposals for feasibility. And in discussion with the deans, it was determined that participation on this working group will count towards faculty service. In mid-February will be the deadline to identify feasible QEP proposals. Next, the top feasible proposals will be reviewed by the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and the Executive Administrative Council. The goal is by mid-April, by April 15th, to announce the selected QEP proposal. Next, we will form another working group to work on the QEP implementation, to develop a timeline for that implementation. A lot of work will be done next fall in fall semester 2022, because that would be the time for us to develop the actual detailed plan for QEP implementation. The leader of this second work group is expected to carry a bulk of the heaviest work, and the current plan is for that faculty to receive either workload adjustment or a stipend. And lastly, but very important, in spring 2023, we aim to have a QEP pilot. I will pause here for any questions so far.
Any questions for Dr. Akins on the QEP? Well, I don't see any raised hands, so
if there are no questions,
proceed.
let's go to the second page that you all have in your materials. I would like to offer a broader look onto the timeline to our decennial submission. We are in track B, which is related to undergraduate and graduate institutions offering undergraduate and graduate degrees or only graduate degrees. So this year, during the December annual meeting of SAC-COC, there will be an orientation for the leadership team. And we will be submitting some documentation to SAC-COC. Next, in 2023, we will have a number of activities. You see our submission date is September 8, 2023, when we submit our documentation. The beginning of October, we will submit the names of 2 external QEP reviewers, and one of them will be selected to the team that will review our QEP proposal. Then, in the first full week in November, and I believe that would be between November 7th to 9th in 2023, the offsite review will be conducted. And then we are expected to submit our QEP 6 weeks before the visits. Because the visits are between January 22 and April, we probably should plan to be ready the last week of November to have ample time for submission, no matter when our date will be for actual submission, because there is variability there. And lastly, in 2024, between January 22nd and April 12th, we will be visited on site, and later that year, we will hear from the SAC-COC Board of Trustees. So this is the big picture, and every month from here on, or almost every month at similar meetings and at the executive committee meetings, the goal would be to present advancements, to solicit further participation, and to continue with the process of collaboration for the best presentation of our university in the process. This is my update for today, and would love to answer any questions about these timelines and what to expect from our faculty.
Okay, well, the floor is open for questions for Dr. Akins regarding the QEP. Any questions for her? Well, it doesn't look like anyone has raised their hand on this either, so you're welcome to continue.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present. A couple of other updates are related to the search of the director for the Office of Education Abroad. This search is advancing, and the expectation is that by the end of this month that we will have an update. Currently, interviews are being conducted. So thank you to all colleagues who showed interest and applied. We have a group of very strong candidates, and I'm very proud of the interest and very positively expecting to identify the faculty to serve in this role. The search for the executive director of the IEA office is also advancing very well. We have a larger interest than maybe what we expected. We have a large number of applicants, and the search committee is in the process of identifying candidates for interview. So hopefully these are positive news for everyone. And thank you for all colleagues who have shown interest. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all of those updates. So if it's okay with both of you, we'll move into Q&A if you're willing to take some questions. And some faculty submitted some questions in advance, and so I'll read some of the pre-written questions on various topics, primarily directed to Dr. Preston.
Yeah, prior to that, I apologize for forgetting. I should have added in my earlier comments. There was a question at Faculty Senate, either the last Faculty Senate or the Executive Committee, I believe it was the Executive Committee, about the fact book and the publication therein. I want to give an update on that. That was an error that we did not include the full data set. We've corrected a portion of that, and in the next week or two, we should have the full set corrected and published. So thank you for that question. I think it was Dr. Urban that raised that last time. So appreciate you pointing out the need for that correction, and we are working on it.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. So appreciate that. Yeah, that was one of the pre-submitted questions. So that checks that one off. Thank you. Well, so if anyone has a question, especially if you want to chime in on a particular topic that we're talking about, feel free to raise your hand or flag me in the chat. But I'll go ahead and proceed with some of the pre-submitted questions. So there are several questions I received on research leave. I think a number of faculty are a little bit confused about the process that's being followed currently with educational and professional leave. So as you know, of course, Dr. Preston, last spring, a number of faculty applied for educational and professional leave as outlined in the BOR policy 8.7.2.4 in our faculty handbook. And my understanding, based on what I've heard from a couple of knowledgeable sources, is that you did not approve or directly disapprove the leave applications. So a number of faculty were under the impression they were getting leave this year, professional leave this year, and instead what they were actually given was reassigned time. Again, if the impression is incorrect, you can certainly correct that. But assuming that premise is correct, the questions, there are several questions, but I'll just start with the first couple. So the first one is just a why question. Why did you decide not to accept or reject the applications for professional research leave that you received last spring? And what is the purpose of giving the reassigned time instead of professional leave to a faculty member?
Thank you. Yeah, great questions. So to clarify, my message to the deans, and I hope that they've conveyed that to the departments and to the faculty, and we will continue that messaging, is I appreciate the opportunity for a more flexible workload, that if a faculty person has an opportunity to do research and there's a unique and compelling opportunity that goes above and beyond the typical work allocation for scholarship, creative activity, and research, above that kind of default 30%, then my approach, and I've encouraged the deans to focus upon this, is to do on an annual basis the opportunity for faculty to have a more flexible workload model. So it is not only within that USG opportunity for research leave, but that we have an opportunity for faculty to do that whenever the opportunity arrives. We've got maybe it's every 7 years, maybe it's more often, maybe it's less often, but it's whenever is appropriate given the strength of the proposal that the faculty has and the research that they're able to conduct. The current USG and UWG opportunity for research leave is still available, and the deadline for that is December 1st. So my encouragement is that these should be unique and compelling and go above and beyond what a faculty would normally be doing as part of their research, scholarship, and creative activity portion of their workload. So distinguishing the opportunity that goes above that 30% of their workload that would occur in spring and fall.
Okay, well, I appreciate that clarification. I think there are a number of questions that might proceed from that. So faculty are currently trying to figure out if they're going to apply for research leave. That deadlines are within the next couple months or less. And so a number of the faculty are trying to figure out, are they likely to get research leave this year? I know you've said that this is supposed to be exceptional, that if possible, reassigned time will be given. But do you anticipate giving any research leave permissions for this next academic year, 2022-23? And if so, what criteria do you think faculty would need to meet to get that research leave?
Yeah, absolutely. The opportunity still exists, right? It's a USG policy. It's encoded in the UWG policies. And so for faculty who believe they have a compelling and strong opportunity, I encourage them to apply. The criteria is laid out. It is what is the proposal, or what is in the proposal that goes above and beyond typical workload allocation for scholarship, creative activity, and research. So what is unique about the proposal that would, it could be a timeliness. Some of the proposals that I supported and encouraged the deans to work on adjusted workload focused on opportunities that could only be conducted this calendar year. And so that could be a measure. Another is the impact and the strength of the outcomes that the faculty are proposing. Also, this is something that, and whether it's the official UWG, USG research leave, or whether it is a proposal for a modified workload adjustment, reduced teaching, increased research, is this also going to lead to enhancing the visibility of the institution? Does this allow us thereafter to kind of springboard from this work that the institution is investing in for faculty to go after broader external funding that would fund research, student support, graduate assistantships, and so forth?
I guess with the reassigned time, so or modified workload, as you also called it, are faculty really on leave if that happens? I mean, are they, so traditionally with leave, at least in my department, and I think across the university, people have assumed that faculty who are on leave are not on call. So, they're not summoned for committee meetings. They're in fact, oftentimes not even in the state, maybe not even in the country. They're focused solely on research and scholarship, whatever project they've adopted for their work that year. But reassigned time, at least in my view, would imply something different. It implies that some of your workload, that is teaching or maybe service or other things, have been reassigned, but you're not necessarily fully on leave, especially if you've received only a partial reassignment, that is, say, a teaching course load reduction. Is that your understanding of modified workload, or would you understand modified workload to mean something that's very much analogous to leave? The person can go to Europe or Asia or Africa or anywhere else and really focus 100% of their professional time on their scholarship.
Yeah, so if it is within the UWG or USG research leave, then you're right, there are no other expectations. If it is a workload adjustment, then that's dependent upon what the dean puts in writing and says, here are the expectations for this upcoming academic year. It could be that the proposal implies the need to be on site and be away from campus, and whether the faculty are able to continue to meet like we're meeting in Zoom online remotely, or whether that's not possible depending, they could be a different time zone, could be sleeping right now and working kind of in a different timing, but that would be negotiated. You're right, if it's a modified workload, then if it's just a reduction in teaching with an emphasis in research, then that service expectation and participating in academic faculty contributions in service and attendance in departmental and college work, that would continue.
Yeah, and I guess that's where some faculty are a little either confused or alarmed or somewhere in between or a mix of both on that, because they're wondering how are they going to proceed with scholarship that then in the past they could assume they could just block off time and pursue. So one question that I received as a private message in the chat that I'll read, and then I'll turn things over to Patrick after, because I know he has his hand up. But the question is, are there or will there be clear and jargon-free criteria for modified workload or reassigned time leaves? What will entail? What are the expected responsibilities, and is a buyout option expected? So I think what that question is asking is this something that the deans will define at will, or is there going to be something that's clearly laid out that faculty who are given modified workload have X number of responsibilities on campus, and then the other 60% of the time, 95% of the time, whatever it might be, can be devoted to research?
So we still have clarity on the UWG and the USG research leave, right? That stands on its own. I'll focus my answer on the question of modified workload. And my ask of the deans is to create a clear and compelling argument for the adjusted workload that they have agreed to and allocated to the faculty. So this could be a 2-3 teaching load with a heightened expectation in service. It could be a 2-2 or 2-3 teaching load with a heightened expectation and focus on scholarship and creative activity. Again, if there's a out of state, out of town, out of country element to that, then that should be articulated as well and made very clear to the faculty persons so that they know what the expectations are. So there's not a uniform rubric or this applies to all. It's on a, if a faculty brings a compelling case where they can do scholarship, creative activity research, then the deans have the flexibility to advocate for, and then we review and support and get that feedback to the faculty so they know what is expected of them.
Patrick.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Preston, for taking questions. I have a concrete question and then a little bit broader question as chair of the Faculty Development Committee. So my more concrete question was, I think there was some confusion last academic year where several people from one unit or several faculty members from one unit applied for the traditional whole semester leave with pay. And that the answer from the college was that they could only get one person per program per year approved or per semester, but that there was a limitation set by academic affairs, i.e. by you as provost, for how many leaves each individual program was allowed to approve per semester or per year. So I guess my concrete question was there, did you issue a restriction on how many leaves in each unit could be taken per year?
I gave no such restriction.
Okay.
I am aware that in the previous year's cycle, prior to me joining UWG, there was language to that effect, but I did not implement or instruct that, nor do I believe that that should be a criteria. I know there's a challenge if there are many faculty who are have great proposals for scholarship research and a reduced teaching request, whether that's through the USG, UWG research leave, or whether that's through modified workload, the ability to deliver our courses is certainly paramount. So that could be a factor that a chair or a dean or even the office of the provost considers, but there's no concrete criteria that says only X number of leave or 1, 2, whatever it is from a particular unit, college, department, whatever that might be.
Okay.
I think it poses an interesting situation. I mean, if you've got great opportunity and it would hinder our ability to deliver courses, we would just need to work that out.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. So, and then my larger question, especially I was on the FTC last year and now I'm chairing it. And so we've been focusing on that question for quite a while. So we've received a good bit of feedback. And I think also this ties into the question that Dan read about, I think there are two levels of uncertainty. The one about the traditional leave with the language of unique and compelling. And I think the concern there is whether we could create more fleshed out or granular criteria so that faculty applying for this would actually know what is considered unique and compelling. And connected to that, I think the question is whether sort of a level of, or actually the location of who and where it is judged, by whom and where it is judged, whether somebody gets this leave, it has changed. So usually it was that a chair would recommend it to the dean, and the dean would trust the subject expertise of the chair that this was indeed a deserving project for a leave, and then it would usually go forward if all other qualifications are met. So if I understand it correctly, that would shift though now to VPAA. And so the question, I think, from a lot of our faculty would be who and on what basis would judge whether something is unique and compelling, and what are the criteria for that? And then for the modified leave, I think then the question is also, could we, as a faculty development committee, work with you on writing an actual policy for the faculty handbook so that that's not sort of undefined and cause for confusion. So that would be my concrete question there, whether you would be willing to work with us to actually come up with a policy that could be then adopted officially through faculty governance, go in the handbook, et cetera.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to your question. The first is what is the process? And that process has not changed. The process, as I understand it, has always been faculty submit, the chair advocate with support, then the dean reviews and either advocates or does not recommend, and then comes before the provost as the USG language, as I understand it. The authority is delegated to academic affairs, but ultimately rests with the office of the president. So that has not changed. The second part of your question, can we come up with written criteria? I think the challenge therein is that you've got a variety and a pretty, what might work in one discipline might not work in another. So there's a significant diversity in what faculty are proposing. I'll give you an example of what is not compelling and has shown up. And I did this 7 years ago and it's now my turn. And so I'm requesting this. And I don't say that lightly, but people have had language to that effect, and that's not sufficient justification for what is the opportunity that faculty have to do something that the institution is investing a significant amount of resources in supporting them. So I think that the best approach would be for faculty to make the case of why this goes above and beyond the typical support that they receive in their normal workload towards scholarship, creative activity, and research, and to continue the practice of department chairs advocating and then deans advocating, and then we make that assessment as we have done.
Okay. Yeah, I think it wouldn't have to be discipline specific, but I think there's really still a strong interest to at least define what is the yardstick here? Because I think in previous email communications I've seen in the spring, I've also seen the word exceptional used, and exceptional can mean just of a high quality, but exceptional can also mean only in exceptional cases. So I do think, even though we can't get into like a discipline specific language, it would help if faculty knew, what do we consider unique and compelling? Also, as Dr. Sethna posted in there, what's unique and compelling for research projects might be different for teaching. So, if somebody really wants to reinvent their pedagogy and do the kind of research necessary, I think that could be very generally phrased, but I do think there's a strong demand from faculty for us to have then a clearer sense of how that's being judged and evaluated.
Yeah, I will say that, I agree. And if the committee wants to take this up, my goal would be, whether it's a Fulbright or whether it's a USG research leave, the opportunity to support faculty in their growth and professional development, and as they have opportunity to make significant impact on whether it's scholarship of learning, scholarship of teaching, whether it's disciplinary scholarship, we as an institution should have a flexibility to zig and zag and support that. And so I understand that there's a perception that this is more restrictive. I see it as exactly the opposite. My message to the deans is, if you have faculty who are coming to you with a compelling case that says, I have an opportunity to work on this project that would remove me from the classroom, and I'm requesting to modify my workload such that I can focus on this, that will allow me to have these other opportunities. It could be a book, it could be a grant, it could be a number of things. And we as an institution should have the flexibility to not be prescribed only as a kind of a 3-3 teaching with 30% scholarship and 10% service. As Dr. Akins just presented earlier in this conversation, we have a need for faculty as part of shared governance to step in and really contribute to QEP and SAC-COC, IEA and others OEA. And we should recognize and respect those contributions. So it's not just a modified workload for scholarship, research, creative activity. It could be modified workload for service as well. So I welcome continuing that conversation with you, Dr. Urban, and that committee, as how can we frame this where it's flexible and respectful of the diversity of our various academic disciplines, and that we're not boxing ourselves in and missing things that we could be doing.
Yeah, we have a couple hands, and so I'll go to those in just a second. I guess one of the things that occurred to me in this conversation is I think it would be really helpful for faculty to know how many resources of certain types are available. That is, when we're thinking about policies on research leave, is this something that's very flexible, where we could imagine a year in which 40 people receive professional leave time and another year in which maybe only 1 or 2 do, or is this something where we have a ballpark figure in mind? And the same with the number of course reallocations, I guess, given with the modified work responsibilities. So I guess that's one of the things that we haven't received, and so it's sort of difficult to imagine how to go about advising people in terms of applying for leave or crafting a policy along those lines. But I want to make sure that we get to the people who raised hands. Shelley.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to get my video going here. And thank you for talking about this. I'm glad. I just have a couple of questions, so please bear with me. You said that that course reassignment is up to the deans to determine, yes?
I said that my message to the deans is, if they have, if they want to advocate for that, clearly we need to present that and come to consensus. It's not completely within the purview of the dean, but they're managing those resources. And my ask is, a proposal that says, here's how we're covering all of our courses and meeting student need. Here's how we're supporting faculty in scholarship from a comprehensive review and to make sure that we have equity and fair workloads across the university. I have asked that they are requesting and reporting what their allocations would be to me. So it's not completely at the purview of the dean, but it's certainly they are advocating for and presenting what they're recommending for the upcoming year.
So if they and department chairs create a proposal for course releases for program coordinators and heads of graduate studies, as well as for leave, that would be something that you and the deans would look at seriously?
Yeah, as we've talked about previously, I understand undergraduate coordinator and graduate coordinator has been on the agenda for quite some time. My message to those deans who've been messaging that is, I'm open to hearing their advocacy for that.
So how would that, will you accept those proposals? Do they need to be in writing? Are they something that the deans bring to you? Because I'm just a little confused because it has been on the agenda for a while and we've been wondering about especially program coordinators and heads of graduate studies, but certainly now that paid leave has come into the picture as well. We're just wondering how that proposal, what's the criteria for the proposal that you need so that it can be considered, these things can be considered in dean's meetings?
Yeah, the message that I've given to Dean Gagnon specifically, but to all of the deans is, and it's part of the comprehensive analysis of programs, what is the workload? How much time are people spending? What are the credit hour production trends for the degree? What is the size of the program? So you could have a program that has fewer students and require, or you could have a program that has more complexity to it with respect to the curricula. So managing that might change, might vary in workload. So I encourage you to talk with Dean Gagnon or to the others on the call, to your deans, about how to present that to them and give them the best data that they can advocate for.
And if we have any questions and we email you directly, is that something you'll respond to us, or do you go through the deans? I'm kind of confused too about communication with you.
Sure, I'm happy for you to reach out to me. My ask has always been that you copy your deans so that they're informed.
Okay. And then you will respond?
Certainly.
Great, thank you.
Marjorie.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Preston, for taking our questions. To go back just a little bit and clarify something for me, in the past, we've had to put together a proposal for leave that included substantially increased creative production and research. So we were already doing this, certainly in my college. It was already being reviewed with the idea that it needed to earn a complete semester away. So I'd like to know, you've indicated that some people were sending in proposals saying, I'm due this leave, and so I should have it. That wasn't happening in my college, at least. And I am aware of people who are away this semester and were denied faculty leave, or it was put as reassigned time, and they are traveling internationally. So is this year just a stopgap measure to get everyone's attention, and then these proposals that are worthy will be granted leave next year? Or is this really redefining what it is? Because we thought we were following USG policy before.
Yeah, great question. So we are operating under the same expectations within USG and UWG. You put the proposal together, and then it's a matter of, does the institution have the resources? I mean, it requires a backfilling with respect to teaching and other duties. So part of the calculus is, do we as an institution have the resources? And then if we do, then what is the strength of the work that's being considered, and how does it go above and beyond normal scholarship, creative activity, research workloads? So, I'm not saying that all of them or even many of them, but the question was posed, what is a strong case? And given the diversity of disciplines, it's not easy to say, well, if you put these words in, or if you meet these specific criteria, I think that's going to be too restrictive. But my emphasis on this is regularly occurring and every X years is a right is not sufficient. So I don't want to dwell on that. I just pointed out that to make sure that people are going above and beyond that. And to your point, I think they typically are, at least in the limited sample that I saw.
I guess part of the confusion comes from the question of whether anyone was given paid research leave last year. Is it true that that not a single person at the university was given paid research leave last year? They were all, some applications were denied, of course, and that's always the case. But then some of the people who thought they had paid research leave were actually put on reassigned time, so that there were actually no applications for paid professional leave that were accepted. Is that true, or is that a misperception?
I think we're working with the deans to clarify what was awarded. And since we're kind of bridging a personnel matter here, I'd rather handle that one-on-one.
I thought I had unmuted there. There's at least one more question on this, and maybe a couple questions. There was a question that came in from the chat. So for those faculty who thought they were getting research leave, but actually are not, they're getting reassigned time this year, can they reapply for research leave in a couple of years? Because normally if they were given paid educational and professional leave this year, they would have to wait another 7 years, because there's, as you all know, they're mandated by the USG. There are a number of stipulations that require this mutual obligation. So if the institution grants research leave or professional leave, then a faculty member is obligated to give a report to the institution, and is obligated to stay at the institution a set amount of time afterwards, usually 1 year, maybe 2 years, and then of course is obligated to wait another 7 years before reapplying. Do any of those stipulations pertain to this reassigned time, or are people who were just given reassigned time this year welcome to reapply, and also welcome if they choose to leave the university after a year without obligation to pay anything back?
So as I understand it, and again, I encourage faculty who submitted these to work with their deans to get clarification. If there's not a signed, authorized, fully executed form, then it was not a USG research leave. That if it was a workload adjustment, as you say, Dr. Williams, then the expectations of reporting out and et cetera would be negotiated between the faculty and that college or school. I certainly support faculty in their careers if they need to move on. Love to have their talent here at UWG, but if there's not a fully executed USG research leave, then those expectations of paying that back or staying for a certain amount of time would not come to bear.
Thank you. Farouk.
Good afternoon, Dr. Preston. My question is about defining and quantifying student success. And the context, of course, is that we are soon going to have conversations across our campus, perhaps starting in the Faculty Development Committee of the Senate, and then maybe by the Senate as a whole, and perhaps a change in the faculty handbook. Now, I've been at West Georgia for a very long time, and I like to think that my colleagues and I are entirely about student success when we take a look at our activities in the classroom, or when we carry out scholarly and creative activities and help students put together their job applications. I hope this is an appropriate question. Can you please share with us how you think about student success?
Yeah, it's so we're shifting topics, and I welcome that. So I agree with you that we all entered higher education because we've dedicated our lives to student success. If we're doing this right, then all aspects of our careers and our annual workloads are compelling us towards supporting students. That can be inside the classroom, that's outside of the classroom. Innovation, pedagogical innovation, advancing our discipline, bringing that back into the classroom. So I agree with you. Yes. So this comes out of the USG, the Board of Regents policy that was just updated this week. And I'm working with Dr. Akins and certainly with Faculty Senate to fulfill the USG expectation of us to revise and update our policies based on that new language. And I know that that's going to be a process that we go through this academic year. The expectation from Dr. Denley and the USG is that we complete that work by the end of this academic year. So it's going to require a lot of contribution and a lot of discussion on what does that mean for UWG. But to your specific question and to your point, I agree that our faculty do a number of things that contribute to student success. It's not just what's in the classroom, but it is holistic. And I look forward to us defining our processes and policies that speak to all of the things that faculty do to contribute to student success. I'll give you an example of this in talking with a colleague 2 weeks ago in this about this. And let's imagine that I'm a faculty advisor for a RSO, a student club, and I negotiate for an external speaker from a company to come onto campus or maybe virtually, given their comfort and timing. But we host an external speaker. Creates a great opportunity. You know, there's work that goes into that, of course, whether it's leveraging your professional network, making calls, negotiating, making sure that the pizza and the soda and or the cookies or whatever you're serving, coffee are in the room, to scheduling and everything that goes into that. And then you host this fantastic speaker. Students connect with and understand their career options and the discipline. It could be a former student who's an alum who's now studying for their PhD and coming back on campus, which I know you've done not too long ago, and connecting with our current students. So there are a number of things that go into that. And I'm speaking hypothetically, but we all on this call know that it occurs. A student connects with someone like that. They then, whether it's in the short term, a few weeks or months, or whether it's a number of years later, they're able to get a job, advance their career because of that interaction that the faculty set up. So I would like to ensure that we are broad and inclusive as we define what faculty are doing towards student success, and make sure that we honor and appreciate everything that goes into that. That's a pretty detailed answer to your question, but I hope that affirms, I believe that faculty are here to see students succeed. I think we're doing that really well. And I know that we can articulate within our policies and processes how West Georgia is already doing that within the context of the USG expectation.
Thank you. And I will just say this very briefly. I guess it's getting late, that my hope is that these kinds of definitions are done, A, very broadly, and B, as far as possible at the program level, because just within my own college, I see a very wide variety of disciplines. So what might be applicable for a faculty member in theater, for example, is quite different from one in mathematics, for example, or chemistry. And so I hope that these definitions are sufficiently broad, much like they are for professional development in the faculty handbook, so that the largest possible set of activities that holistically contribute to student success are included. And thank you very much for taking my question.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I completely agree with you. We have, and I'll liken this to promotion and tenure, given that this ties within the USG expectation to that, right? Student success as a measure. And we have broad P&T guidelines at the university level, then they're refined within colleges and schools, and then they're further refined within departments. And I think we can take the same approach here and honor the diverse work that faculty are doing at a disciplinary level as well as holistically.
Well, I guess in the spirit of changing subjects, which Farouk introduced, I received a couple of questions about the budget. I know there's going to be a quick summary of your budget update later in the agenda with the presentation from the Budget Committee, very brief presentation as an information item, I think, if I understand it correctly. But maybe you could address a couple questions on the budget, if you wouldn't mind. So this sounds like a broad question, but what is the state of the university budget right now? And then as a follow-up, do you anticipate having to make any faculty layoffs or send out any non-renewal letters this academic year?
Yeah, so I know that, so with respect to the budget situation, that's fairly nuanced, and I would defer to John Haven to really give the details on that. I know that he and I presented to the Faculty Senate Budget Committee, and so the details of the state of the university's finances, I think, are within the materials we've already presented. Within academic affairs, we measure that with student credit hour production, right? So that is the economy by which academic affairs functions is how many students and how many credits are we delivering. And so you see it in the minutes there, as well as our presentation to Faculty Senate Budget Committee. Credit hour production continues to decline. We're trying to, and I know that all of the faculty are working on this, the revised preview day that we had a few weeks ago, the new degrees and courses that you all are reviewing and approving are all trying to move in a different direction. And so Mr. Haven also addressed, we've got some of the CARES funds that are currently present that are helping with this fiscal year. The second part of your question about personnel, we have no plans. We're still working on how are we moving forward through this fiscal year and what does that look like in FY23. But I'm not able to really answer in detail that. My focus, and I hope that you all, in fact, beyond hope, I know that you all share it, is that we are doing everything we can to advertise our programs. Back to my earlier point about summer camps, I know that that is more of a long-term recruitment effort, but it might have some immediate payoffs. And our focus is on making sure that our academic programs are as strong and distinctive and compelling as possible to drive student interest.
Well, thank you. Shelley.
Sorry. In terms of the really detailed presentation that you gave to the Senate Budget Committee, some of us had some concerns with some of the data. For example, English and philosophy were put together in terms of student credit hours, and then therefore were put on a slide that said they were one of the programs most in decline, when actually when you put English and philosophy separate, that's not the case. Will those fixes happen? Because I've seen that the PowerPoint is being distributed elsewhere with the same sort of flaws to it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that was really an artifact of I guess departmental organization. It could be historical as well. I agree that there are better views of that. In particular, if we look at our comprehensive analysis of programs and those spreadsheets that have been distributed to the deans and to the chairs, those break down on a per program basis and are in much more detail, credit hour production on a per course basis even, right? So we can see better data in those views. So this was really an overview presentation. You're right that those are two distinct areas, and I'm happy to work to either eliminate that section of the graph or break those out. The overall message, I agree with you that the data and the presentation is disturbing in that the credit hours are in decline in some areas, and that's something that none of us want to see, and we're working towards growing that and reversing that trend.
So before it's distributed more, we can eliminate that slide and fix all of the other. I don't mean to just focus on that one because there were some other discrepancies in the presentation that folks brought up, and so it's just concerning that it's being distributed with those discrepancies already still in place.
Yeah, I'm happy to break those two programs out with an amended version of this, but I would ask that if there are other points that people are making and they believe that there are errors, then please send them to me. I will either respond and clarify, or we'll make the change.
Thank you.
And I know that you're not the budget person at the university in terms of your direct role, but here's one more budget question, and feel free to deflect it if you want. But one person said that there are, I guess, on the information that HR shared of a spreadsheet of open positions that included a lot of faculty positions, there are a number of positions in which you're listed as the supervisor, which means they're in academic affairs, and there are open positions that used to have money from those positions going to a particular academic department. And right now, that's not the case. And as best as people can tell, it's simply an open position that no one is necessarily getting the money. That is, it's not as though, to use my own department as a hypothetical example, it's not as though there was a history line that was then transferred to biology or something like that. It's simply an open position. So the question is, where are the lapsed salary dollars for all those open positions going?
So I think there's two parts to this. One is, if you look at that report that's on the website and you look at it just as is, there's an important item of clarification that needs to be raised. It is the practice of budget and finance, rather than when a vacancy occurs, eliminating it. If someone is no longer filling it, they hold that position in the database by that unique ID. And whether it's refilled within the same area, and this is true beyond academic affairs, it's true across the entire HR system, we reuse positions, and the position number is created. Databases and computing being what they are, it's, I guess, supposedly easier to just keep that and then refill it, regardless of whether it's the same department or same unit across UWG, than whether or not you fill it with someone that goes back into that department. So I wouldn't necessarily use that spreadsheet as an indication of how many true openings there are. In particular, in academic affairs, we have had a number of vacancies that have come up across the years, some of which persist and are being filled with limited term or other ways to meet those needs. And so to the second part of your question about where are those dollars used, we're using them comprehensively. I'll point to we in FY21, we sustained a significant financial loss, and given travel, professional development and travel was eliminated across academic affairs and really across the university. With FY22, as I've stated previously in other faculty senate meetings and to the deans, we've restored that. And so faculty have those dollars that we've backfilled with some vacancies in areas that credit hour and number of students are in decline. Vacancies come open, we don't necessarily have the same personnel needs. And so we're redirecting those to be as efficient as possible and support faculty and programs across academic affairs as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, well, thanks. There was a follow-up question, I guess, just to Shelley's point, that I think relates to the budget presentation PowerPoint. One of the things that the budget presentation PowerPoint doesn't account for is this division within colleges or reconstitution of different departments in different colleges that occurred a year and a half ago. And so in the case of English, for example, and the same thing would be true of math, there's the PowerPoint presentation simply lumps all English courses together or all math courses together. And in fact, you would get very different data, very different conclusions from the data if that was to be broken apart by college. So English 1101 and 1102, for example, taken out of the English and philosophy equation, or with math, the four math courses that are in the general education program taken out, you would perhaps see different numbers there. And I guess that's one of the concerns that some faculty and programs that are directly affected by that have raised. That's the question that came up here in the chat. In fact, several of these questions relate to that. I guess broadly speaking, maybe you don't want to give specific examples for, say, English and philosophy or math, but just broadly speaking, how would you talk about the effect that the creation of new departments within University College would have on this data presentation that doesn't really account for that?
There are different data sets, and I'm happy to share that. I've shared it almost weekly earlier in the summer as we were trying to drive summer enrollment, as well as towards fall, the opening of fall, that lists courses by prefix. And so we're looking at different prefixes and looking at year-to-year change and increase, leveling, or decline in credit hour production by prefix. And those do in fact break out between the gen ed courses and then those disciplinary courses, math, English, and others. So I've shared those widely with the deans. I'd be happy as a follow-up, perhaps as a point of clarification to the budget committee, to present a sample of that, maybe in an amended version of this PowerPoint, if you all would like to include that. I don't know that it significantly changes the trend, though. As an example, you've got decline in the math and English separated out in gen ed, and had this discussion with Dean Pearson earlier this week on what is the impact on dual enrollment or other factors that contribute to gen ed first year courses in UC. So it's a fairly complicated system. We've got students transferring in or starting with us with gen ed credits taken elsewhere or perhaps through dual enrollment. We have other students that are coming to us as dual enrollment students, and our credit hour production is going up because of dual enrollment. So they're taking those first year gen ed courses as high school students. I will say that the number of credit hours that we are producing through dual enrollment outpaces the loss, and I'll put that in quotes, of students coming to us already having taken those courses. So the trend is dual enrollment is up, credit hour production as a result of dual enrollment is up, and the, consulting notes, the number of credits awarded with UWG dual enrollment students relative to credits lost with students coming in with those is kind of a 3-to-1. So we're winning 3-to-1 with respect to dual enrollment. And that is a contributing factor to credit hour production. So happy to break that down, provide that distinctively. The point made in the comments, yes, the reorganization, specific to Dr. Urban pointing out reorganization not understood or accounted for in that budget for that one slide, that might be the case, but we're accounting for it accurately, and I'm happy to provide samples of that so that it's clearer.
So, I guess just as a point of clarification on gen ed, this is sort of side point, but I just want to make sure that I've heard this correctly. I know you said dual enrollment credit hour production is up, which is great. But are you saying that there has been a net increase in gen ed student credit hour production over the last 5 years?
Yes, I'm looking at the last 3 years in particular. And just looking at English and math, it has gone up by, let's call it 20% in the last 2 years. AY19 to AY21.
Okay. Yeah, that's a surprise to me. It seems like that wasn't exactly what some of the slides in the budget presentation indicated, but maybe I misread those. I'll take a closer look.
To clarify, you're looking holistically at credit hour production in gen ed. I'm speaking specifically about gen ed production in dual enrollment. So dual enrollment gen ed is increased. Overall, gen ed has decreased.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm asking about is overall gen ed. So any program that has a significant number of gen ed hours lumped into it could end up showing a net decrease from that, depending obviously on the course. But well, I wanted to ask briefly about P&T, maybe as the last item that we cover, because several faculty asked about that. Of course, as you know, the BOR issued some substantial changes to PTR and tenure this week, and a number of faculty expressed concern. So I guess I'll just read several of the questions together or summarize them. One is, could you please share your views on the ongoing discussions of changes in policy for post-tenure review? Another is, can you talk about how you evaluate dossiers for promotion and tenure? And then the final question that's kind of lumped into this is a concern about how are we going to move forward in recruiting and retaining faculty who might be nervous about the new PTR guidelines, the new policies from the USG that have been interpreted by some, at least, including New York Times, as undermining tenure in the state.
So I'll go back to our previous discussion. Dr. Khan brought up student success, and I'll echo what I said recently. I believe faculty are committed to student success. And so that element that we need to address by USG policy, the charge to us is to work through shared governance to develop modifications to our policies and procedures to support the new language that's within the USG. And so I have every confidence that we can meet those expectations, not only from a process perspective, but that our faculty are committed to student success and in their individual annual performance reviews, as well as their promotion and tenure documents, can provide that evidence of their meeting those expectations. So I think there were multiple pieces to that, but Dr. Williams, fundamentally, we are part of a system. These are the expectations that have been given to us. Your first question, what is my view on it? We are part of a system, and we will meet and exceed those expectations. We have the opportunity to define what promotion and tenure and student success and what does it mean to be a successful faculty person within the culture of a regional comprehensive university. And so I appreciate that the USG affords us that opportunity to articulate what success annually and through promotion and tenure looks like at UWG, and we will meet that challenge. And then the last bit, how do we address criticism or concern that, how do we attract and retain faculty? West Georgia is a fantastic place. Georgia is a fantastic place. We have great colleagues. We've got great programs. We've got amazing facilities throughout the US and the world. We all face challenges. Higher ed is going through a time of transition and challenge with changing population, different markets, and availability of students. We've talked about that. I think the credit hour decline we just talked about recently is indicative of that. We're going to turn that around. We're going to grow. It's a great place to be, and I know that we've got a great future ahead of us. So how do we retain top talent? Respecting, I think that ties into our previous conversation today, respecting the great work that faculty are doing, honoring that, and providing opportunity and flexibility to allow them to pursue individual skills and opportunities they have that then contribute to the strength of this great institution. That's a compelling argument to me. I can speak personally. I joined recently, so I'm a firm believer that West Georgia is a place to go towards. And I know that we can make that case to new faculty that are joining us. And I'm confident in that.
Well, good. I guess I just received a direct message from someone that wants me to follow up on this, since I've received this concern from others as well, that they're really afraid with the new PTR guidelines that this could be one more step towards shutting down faculty voices. And so the question is, how can we be assured that this won't be used as a retaliatory measure?
One thing that I'll point out, so as I read the change in PTR, probably the most significant difference is, rather than a 5-year cycle, if someone is doing great work and has a strong package, then nothing changes. It's every 5 years. If there's a need for remediation, then rather than a 5-year cycle, it's a 1-year. So it allows people to demonstrate that they've made corrective action, that they're doing great things, and then come out of that remediation cycle more quickly. On the other side, I know that there are comments about actions taken if that's not the case, if people still have issues with their performance, and I take that on face value. I know that Dr. Denley made the recommended change to the language. I appreciate his time that he spent with us recently and among a number of institutions. And there was, his comments on Tuesday at the board committee. There was an implicit assumption that peer review, and just as we do with promotion and tenure, the PTR included peer review. That was an implicit assumption, but I know that he modified that language based on comments to strengthen that and make it more explicit that would occur. And so to anyone who has concerns that this revised PTR is going to be used to go against shared governance or faculty voice, I don't believe that's the case. That's certainly not how it will be used at West Georgia. It's at face value that this is a process for evaluating faculty performance objectively. And so I affirm that. I believe that the language has been strengthened to affirm that in the version that was passed by the board. And that's certainly how we will be implementing it at West Georgia.
Thank you. Yeah, that's reassuring. I appreciate that. We just received another direct message that maybe people who want to chime in with questions during the last 5 minutes or so, the Q&A, if you're willing to take the questions. So the question is, it's kind of a direct question. Would you please comment as to why the provost is no longer leading the provost council?
So as I understand it, we're using the Dean's Council and the Extended Dean's Council to message a lot of changes and opportunities. I've tasked the deans with messaging that throughout their respective units. And I believe that the Provost Council can be used effectively for those department chairs. It's a much broader group, and reiterating the same messages that I've conveyed to the deans in 2 previous meetings, I'm again charging them to convey that. So I believe that the Provost Council Forum is a better group to focus on implementing those and discussing challenges and opportunities to collaborate among the departments. I think I've received an invitation to join, and I'm happy to do so, bring comment, but I'm also respectful of people's time. And I want to afford that particular group to work together and have conversations focused on their needs. So any message that I would have otherwise brought to that provost council, I'm conveying to the deans, and then they're communicating that within their units.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the explanation. That the question did not come from me, but I will say, as someone who is faculty senate chair, as a member of the provost council, but not the dean's council, I know there are people who are in the provost council who are not part of the dean's council and would probably really appreciate hearing directly from you and the chance to talk with you. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about, or that you've received an invitation and that you may join.
Yeah,
So
along
thank
those,
you.
so I think there might be two bits to that. I'm happy to meet if a chair or anyone has a need. I'm here to serve and to meet with you all. I think those often better. We can work out challenges and talk one-on-one. With respect to information flow and communication and transparency, I want to be clear that my absence from Provost Council, which I know historically the provost has attended, that's in no means to diminish communication or to create opacity. More, anything that I'm passing to the deans, the expectation is they're communicating that very clearly. If that's not occurring, then that's a separate thing that we can address and make sure that it is. But to anyone on this call and across the university, I welcome meeting with you, and I'm happy to do so if there's a need.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So we will now transition into committee reports. And I think, as is the case every month, the UPC has quite a number of committee reports or agenda items for us, items for a vote. And I believe that Rosemary, you are presenting in Karen's absence today. So I believe the first item is a biology course.
That's right. Thanks, Dan. Okay, so our first proposal is for a new course, Biology 4430 Wildlife Techniques. This course provides students with hands-on experience for various careers in biology and ecology, and it's been taught twice as a special topics course.
Any questions, comments on this? Seeing none, I think we're probably ready for a vote. And it looks like the measure passes. So we'll go on to the next item. Rosemary?
Okay, the next course, this is also a new course proposal for Introduction to Social and Behavioral Health. This is an introductory course for the Social and Behavioral Health degree, which had previously used an XIDS course as an intro, but it now has a sufficient number of majors to support its own intro course.
Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will assume that there's no discussion needed on this, so we will move toward a vote. And the measure passes. Items from the College of Ed, I think, are next on the agenda.
That's right. And I'm going to speak to the next 4 items all at once. So first is a modification to the Health and Community Wellness minor. And what this modification would do is it would add as options the 3 new courses that are listed underneath. So items B through D. And those courses are being added to meet student demand for these particular topics among the health and community wellness students.
And as always, if anyone wants to jump in with a comment or question, just flag that by raising your hand or sending a chat message, but seeing none, we're ready for a vote.
Okay, and I think this is 2 separate
yeah,
votes,
I think there's going to be.
Yeah, it's 2 separate votes. We're going to do
we'll
the minor first and then the courses as a block.
Thanks,
so
Colleen.
right now we're voting on the minor, and we'll go back, vote on
The
the
minor
courses.
passes unanimously.
So I think we're ready to launch the poll on the courses.
Yep. All right, and then the block. All right, here's the block.
And that too passes, I believe. Back to you, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you. The next proposal is a modification to the BBA in finance. And this modification adds new concentrations within the major in financial analytics, corporate analytics, and investment analytics. And this is basically to respond to the increasing importance of analytics in the finance field.
I think we're ready for a vote. And this passes as well. Back to you.
Okay, the next four proposals we're going to take as a block. So items A through D under the School of Communication, Film and Media. These are 4 new GFA, meaning Georgia Film Academy courses, and they contribute to 2 new GFA certification pathways. So these courses are for an external GFA certification rather than a UWG certificate. And so that's the program that they're serving.
I think we're ready to launch the poll. And that passes. Okay, back to you, Rosemary, for University College items.
Okay, so similar to the proposals for health and community wellness, I'm going to talk about these together. So first, there is a program modification for the BS in criminology, and this is to add within that program a new concentration in policing. And then it also includes some other changes to the curriculum just to accommodate that new concentration. And some of those include the addition of these 5 new courses, which is items B through F. So those 5 courses will all serve the new policing concentration and can also serve as electives for other criminology majors.
So I think we'll have 2 votes on this. So the first vote will be on the creation of the concentration itself. So we'll launch that poll.
Passes.
And that passes. So now we can launch the second poll to add some criminology courses related to this.
Okay, and the block. Passes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, and now,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I think it's Center for Interdisciplinary Studies next, right?
That's right. So these 3 proposals are all for new interdisciplinary pathways within the BIS program, the Bachelor's of Interdisciplinary Studies. If you all recall, last year we formalized the process for in Curriculog adding new pathways within the BIS. So these are basically concentrations that students pursuing a BIS degree can pursue. It gives a curricular kind of outline of what that concentration would look like. And then it also provides a mentoring structure for students in those pathways. And so the 3 pathways being proposed are 1 in data science, which is computer science and mathematics are contributing to that program. The natural resources management pathway, which has several programs: anthropology, biology, communications, economics, geography, geology, political science, and sociology. And then finally, the writing pathway, which is a collaboration between art, communications, English, film, and sociology.
Very good. Well, seeing no comments from anyone regarding these 3 programs, I think we are probably ready to launch the poll.
Passes.
Very good. Well, thank you, Rosemary. Appreciate
Thank
that. And I think we are now ready to transition to the Graduate Programs Committee. Dina?
Yes, we have a number of proposals. The first one up is the modification of the sociology master's program. This program, the description is they're infusing a lot of advanced training and research methods with a focus on social justice. They do have degree standards in terms of a professional statement and background. And also it includes student accepted into the Plan 1 thesis or Plan 2 applied track. So I don't know if there's any questions on this.
I don't see anything from the floor. So we're probably ready to launch the vote. I guess this will be a series of 3 votes. The first one is to modify the MA and then 2 votes on the courses, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
So we will go ahead and launch that, if that's okay. And the first vote passes. Now we have 2 more votes on these specific courses, I believe.
Yes, these 2 specific courses, 5915 Violence Against Women and the Applied Project track are both new courses. The first one is students have expressed an interest in taking this course topic at the graduate level. And for the Applied Project, this is now a part of the new track, the part of the program in order to give students a better, like an applied project at the end of their program. So those are the purpose of the 2 courses.
Very good. Those may be broken into 2 separate votes. And if so, that's fine. We'll have a vote on Sociology 5915.
Passes.
Very good. Okay. Next vote on Sociology 6986, the Applied Project.
Passes.
Excellent. Back to you, Dina, for biology, I believe.
Yes, the Department of Natural Sciences, it's Biology 5430, Wildlife Techniques. I know Rosemary had one at the undergraduate level. There is interest at the graduate level, and it's previously been taught as a special topic. So this needs to be approved as a graduate level course.
Very good. I think we're ready to launch the poll.
Passes.
And that looks like it's unanimous. Back to you, Dina, on computer science, Department of Computing and Mathematics.
Yes, Department of Computing and Mathematics. These 2 courses, they'll be taken separately, but it's Programming Fundamentals and Principles of Computer Science. Coming up in the College of Education, they're adding a computer science endorsement. So both of these courses are included as courses graduate courses under computer science, but they are also part of a collaboration in an endorsement track.
Very good. So we'll probably vote on these 2 back to back, so we can launch the poll on the first one, CS 5210.
Passes.
Very good. And now 5310.
Hold on, let me write down the numbers. Passes.
And now, Dina, I guess College of Ed.
Yes. Okay. The first one is a modification to the Professional Counseling and Supervision EDD program. And these are for one, there's 4 parts to this. One is adding the interview back in with faculty. They previously had it, but they're adding it back in. And then there's 2 tracks, the EDS track and the 60-hour track. For those who do not have an EDS in counseling, they want to add 4 pre-approved courses as electives. This way it helps streamlines it in WoofWatch instead of entering each course separately. And then it also has additional courses may be improved by the program director. There was one study abroad course in Ecuador. If study abroad does come back, that they wanted that open so that could be added. And the program description has now been revised to match what the current program is. Previously, this was the first revisions that has occurred in probably maybe 7 or 8, 10 years. So they wanted to make sure the description accurately reflects the degree offered.
Well, very good. I think we're ready for a vote on that modification to the program. Okay, looks like it passes unanimously. And then we have the computer science endorsement and MEDT 7499.
Yes. The computer science endorsement, it's a collaboration between the Educational Technology and Foundations program in the College of Ed and Computer Science. It includes the 2 courses we previously voted on, plus the other course, the course under item B, Methods and Strategies for CT Integrated Learning. So I believe we first need to take the endorsement first and then the next program, the course to be added.
Okay, we'll vote on the computer science endorsement. And it looks like that passes overwhelmingly. So MEDT 7499, I guess, is next.
Yes, and this is part of the endorsement for computer science. And it needs to be added as a course because I believe previously it was taught maybe as a special topic. So.
Okay, that sounds good. I think we're ready for a vote.
Unanimous.
And it passes. Very good. So now I think you have an information item for us, an update on some discussions that occurred in your committee.
Yes, I do have an update, and the graduate assistantship policy that was proposed, it was going through the graduate programs committee. It actually, the program did not pass, and it was by a vote of 0 yeses, 8 noes, and 2 abstentions. One of the biggest things that we had, and I'll explain the rationale why it was rejected, is because largely the concerns regarding student recruitment and success, and also some program health. There are some programs that really rely on GA graduate assistants that are not research GAs in terms of running labs or other items, and it would be an overall detriment to graduate studies. And I know the consensus from the Graduate Programs Committee, I know we have some members here too, and our Graduate Advisory Council would be, could we write a policy from the ground up versus going back and forth from the graduate school to us to do revisions? Then there's further confusion in terms of being able to intuit what's needed. So I think this is a direct question for Dr. Preston. Would you, and I know we've had email communication, would you support coming to GPC to discuss principles for a new proposal so we can achieve the desired goals for the health and success of our graduate programs?
Well, Dr. Preston, if you would like to comment on that or respond, you're welcome to. Maybe not. Okay. Anything else on this update, or any questions that anyone has? Patrick, I believe you'd like to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, if Dr. Preston could come back in, that would actually be awesome, because I did want to emphasize that we've had a lot of feedback from all different constituencies, from different committees, Graduate School Advisory Council, from in GPC, of course, representatives from all colleges. And I do want to underscore that it's been remarkable that actually there's been consensus across colleges that this new policy proposal would indeed be destructive for graduate education, specifically student recruitment and success. And there has not been the sense that all that feedback has been heard. However, there have only been minor tweaks made to the proposal that have come back around. And it's, again, it's a consensus that this is not working and that we need to, as Dina mentioned, really rework this proposal from the ground up so that several key issues, we don't create competition among units at West Georgia instead of competing actually with other universities. And so we're not undermining our students who rely on this funding and the programs, labs, like different COE labs, or University Writing Center, that cannot actually be run, that support also undergraduate education through graduate students. And so it is very crucial to the continued success of graduate education that we have steady funding, that we have the ability to plan years ahead of time and to also recruit students with very clear understanding what funding we have. As we all know, graduate education has been growing, so we don't even see an exact need for restructuring graduate assistantships. So we'd actually like to hear why this all has to be changed, but primarily we would like to hear from you, Dr. Preston, whether you agree to have us draw up a new proposal with essential grassroots faculty participation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I know that I've been invited to attend GPC next month. I'm happy to do that. I'd point out we currently do not have a process for grad assistantship allocation. It is kind of historical and just kind of continues from historical precedent. But the intent of this was to create a process by which these are awarded competitively, supporting those programs that are growing, and in the same way addressing and creating resources in areas that are growing and making sure that the programs, the faculty have the support they need. I mean, we have ever increasing expectations of faculty and their production, and I want to make sure that they have the resources that they need to do that. So I welcome the GPC to bring thoughts and input on that, but the process of a flat allocation that does not change, does not give us the ability to pivot and be as nimble as we need to be.
Any other comments or questions on this information item?
Dr. Williams, if I can also add, there was a question brought up in GPC about why is this needed? When I began working with Dr. Ziegler and Dr. Ela on this, when in this FY22 budget cycle, we consolidated the funding for assistantships into the graduate school, we were addressing an issue that was occurring across the institution where if an assistantship was not utilized, then there would be a budget amendment and those funds that were intended to support grad programs could be redirected to other things. By allocating it into the graduate school and creating this process by which faculty can submit their needs and have those reviewed, it eliminates the possibility of an academic unit using these funds for anything but grad assistant support. So I would argue that it actually strengthens the institution's commitment to graduate programming and the faculty that are in need of these resources.
Patrick.
Yeah, I would like to state though that we did have a system of allocation until that was changed earlier last year with no clear directive why that was. The colleges were in control of the graduate assistantship budgets, and then within the colleges, programs could competitively then award those assistantships to the most deserving students. So it's not that there was no competition, but there was no unnecessary competition between units. And I want to reiterate, it's quite remarkable that among all units at the university, there is consensus that that kind of internal competition would actually hurt graduate programs. So I'm not quite sure where the idea comes from that it's not working. Graduate assistantships have helped graduate education grow. And there's a widespread notion that we're actually messing with something that is not broken. In fact, that has been working well. And so I'm really a little bit stunned that we're having to change this for a reason that seems to be not clearly articulated when graduate education has been growing. So it's actually directly counter to all the rhetoric that we are rewarding things that are growing. Graduate education has been growing, so why would we change that? I really don't understand that. And I have to be quite insistent on pressing you on that point, because you're actually disincentivizing hard work and growth if you're changing something that has been growing. Even small programs have been growing. Not sure who will bite the bullet here, but somebody will. And I hope the university will stop advertising how many graduate programs we have if a third of them actually die because of this. So you actually will be working this program out against the consensus of all units involved. I just want to be very clear about that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this? If not, thank you, Dina. Appreciate all that.
Oh, I think Nima had his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. For some reason, it's not showing up on my screen.
I just wanted
please
to
go ahead.
quickly, yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to quickly echo what Dr. Urban pointed out, and Dr. Preston, just emphasize that if some programs were misallocating funds, the existing system, I think, could be altered to take on that problem. I just want to say that I'm just so worried about the impact that this centralization of monies is going to have on numerous grad programs across campus. And in talking to many, many people at the grassroots level, that's the sort of consensus that has emerged, is a lot of trepidation and a lot of concern about what impact this will have.
Yeah, I'll address that concern directly. This idea that a competitive process for assistantships is going to hurt programs, I don't agree with that premise. The programs have intrinsic value, and I think that the faculty can clearly articulate the benefit not only to the student and the program, but also the individual faculty. That's the intent of this change, that they're able to articulate the benefit of the assistantship. And so to the point that it's going to damage the programs, I don't accept that premise. I believe that faculty are the best advocates for the research and the scholarship and the opportunity that assistants will have in working with them and in the programs. And if it should strengthen the opportunity for students to want to work with these faculty.
I don't know, Patrick, your hand is still raised. Do you have more? Okay, so any other comments on this? If not, thank you everyone for contributing to this, and thank you, Dina, for bringing it up. I think we're now ready to move to APC, Academic Policies Committee. Jennifer, you have an action item for us, I believe.
Yes, we are modifying a requirement for the Bachelor of Arts related to language study. So currently, the only pathway through is to complete 2002 or equivalent in a foreign language. They're changing that wording to be more inclusive, taking out the foreign part because languages are no longer in one region of the world, they're everywhere. So they've changed it to include complete 2001 in a language other than English, and complete either the 2002 version of that same language or take an approved 2000 level FORL course. And it's my understanding that those are taught by the faculty in international languages and culture. They're taught in English and they're focused on the culture of a language. And the nice thing about this is it removes a barrier for specifically transfer students, because they can come in and they can actually take those concurrently. They could take 2001 and an FORL to knock out that requirement. So the proposal is just a change for the undergraduate handbook. You can see the revised language there.
Any questions or comments on this? Seeing no raised hand, I think we're probably ready for a vote. It looks like it passes overwhelmingly. So thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Kathy, you have some reports from the Student Affairs and Intercollegiate Activities Committee.
Yes, thank you very much. Turn on my video. We have two things. First of all, as we approach homecoming, we want to ask everybody's help in making sure students understand that there will be an increased, particularly Carrollton, police presence in the area. The reason for this is that they are trying to prevent problems that occurred in prior homecoming weeks, especially shootings and rapes. And they're trying to prevent that. So they're trying to make sure that they have a presence out there, and that anybody who's coming in the area with, as I say, bad intentions is not hurting our students at all. So that's the first thing. Again, please get this out to your students and let them know that. They're not meaning to target anybody. They're not meaning to disturb the fun. They're just trying to help keep everybody safe. The second issue, or second item, is that Student Government Association, SGA, will be holding a meet and greet on November 5th, I believe the date is, at 5 o'clock in the area, outside area near the campus center. The nicely covered area. They will have hot chocolate and eggnog, and it is primarily to meet the deans, but they are requesting that as many faculty as possible please attend to meet the students and get in front of all the students. And this is a good opportunity for us to build a more positive relationship, or a positive relationship, between students and faculty. And if nobody has any questions, that's all I had.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate the information item. I think Lori, as chair of the budget committee, is going to formally present.
Dan,
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
before we get to the budget committee presentation, Michael Hester has a question in the chat regarding ASL classes, which could count possibly as a language other than English.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to raise my hand, but wanted to ask, seems like that might be something we should discuss.
Okay, so we already voted to do it. We can now talk about what the vote means. So Jennifer, I don't know if you want to comment on that, or if we want to have maybe the senator from that program. I believe Yvonne is on the line, for instance, if we want to ask her to comment.
Yes.
I'll give first choice to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question, so I will defer to that department. Yvonne is on, Rob is also on, so if either of you would like to speak to that. I do know that the proposal that was sent to APC listed only French, German, and Spanish. So I don't know if that would need to be a separate proposal to go through to include that as an English language other than English, or how that would work with Faculty Senate. So does anyone want to jump in?
Hi, this is Yvonne. We would definitely, this is something that would need a lot of discussion. It's not something that can be decided right now. It's not something that can be decided, even within a week. I think we have to consider whether, a lot of things. So I'll just stop at that. I think we're all open to having a conversation about this, and Rob might have more input if you're around, Rob.
Hello. Yes, I just wanted to say that we can, that's something that the ILC can put on our agenda for our next program meeting. And it's certainly a topic that we can discuss and provide an answer for. I don't know if that would go through APC, but the way that this new policy is currently phrased, it does call for not only French, German, and Spanish, but the equivalent of French, German, and Spanish. So that does open up a space for accepting other languages, including ASL, that would be considered an equivalency. And in the past, we have awarded transfer credit in FOR areas, in areas B and C for ASL courses. So
Awesome.
I think we should be able to offer a response promptly to that question.
And I think leaving it open to the or equivalent might be the best way to go, because if we narrow it too much, we paint ourselves into a corner. So that might be a consideration of just leaving it or equivalent and leaving it up to maybe putting something in there about program approval or advisor approval, something like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification from everyone. Okay, now moving to the budget presentation from Lori. Lori, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I don't know that this is accurately called a presentation, right? Because I'm not going through the slides that were created by Dr. Preston and Mr. Haven. But I do want to let you all know that they came to our budget committee at our request, and this is an annual event. Now, when you go through these slides, it's important for you to understand that there is a twofold purpose for this presentation. One is to train the faculty on the budget committee about how the budget works, right? If we are going to fulfill our advisory role, we need to understand the metrics and where our money comes from, and then the restrictions we have on what we can do. And so again, a lot of this is training. The other purpose of this presentation is to let us know where we are at with our budget. Now, what I will say is that, again, this is an annual event that the budget committee does. We opened this up to executive committee, so it was nice to have a little bit bigger group. We all know that Dr. Preston and Mr. Haven are incredibly busy people, and they only had an hour with our committee, and we do appreciate the hour that we got, but we did not really have a chance to ask a lot of questions. And so what we did is we put together a list of questions that we had. They're in the minutes, and we will continue to discuss those next week. So, and we do recognize, and Colleen, I'm fine if we put a little asterisk in the minutes with this presentation, that there were some discrepancies that were brought up within the meeting. I only knew about the English one, but if there are more, again, we can ask Dr. Preston and Mr. Haven to correct those and then issue a new set of PowerPoint slides that then we can make sure that the record reflects the accurate numbers. So just in terms of big ideas and big questions that we had, we did submit questions prior to this presentation, and some of them weren't answered. And so we're going to circle back and make sure those are answered. And there were questions about staff positions that were reduced, if there's a metric for those, what the savings was and where that money has gone. If there's any consideration for changes in faculty workload caused by decreases in staff positions. So again, staff was a big theme. Another big theme that we had were questions about the total amounts, not individual salaries, but total amount of administrator salaries and the change in those over the past several years, either up or down. The cost of consultants and what those consultants are doing for that value is another theme area that we have questions about. And in general, the committee is concerned about the budget as a whole, with not just a focus on academic affairs. So we understand that we are under the Division of Academic Affairs, but the budget is a system, and we can't look at one aspect of the system without considering the whole. And so again, we have and will continue to communicate that we care about the budget as not just from the perspective of academic affairs. And the other big idea or comment is that the committee would absolutely like to play an active role in determining how these very significant budget shortfalls are going to be addressed, given that the holes in the budget really have been plugged with CARES Act money or money that was swept from one budget year to, again, to plug some spots. So we have some issues that need to be addressed with the budget, and we are very serious about our advisory role. And we want to continue to have discussions about making sure that our committee is active in decisions that are being made. So I think that about sums it up.
Thank you for that information item, Lori. Any questions or comments that anyone wants to make in response to Lori's summary of the provost and Mr. Haven's presentation on the budget to the budget committee? Seeing no raised hands, I think we're probably ready for the next agenda item, which comes from the Rules Committee. Angie?
Okay. Hang in there with us, guys. We are going to start with the first section, instructional components of the university, which is addendum 6. And mostly what we're changing this time is to have the all of the names of all of the departments and the colleges reflect the reorg we did last year. So we went through the policies and procedures manual and changed all the names to reflect the changes that were made. So the first one, the instructional components of the university, it is changed now to read each major academic unit, colleges, schools, and the library, rather than list everything out, because that's not what they're called any longer.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a lot of meticulous work on the part of the Rules Committee to keep up with all of our documents and make sure that they reflect current terminology. So my understanding of the Policies and Procedures Manual is that that's a document that ultimately belongs to the general faculty. So when we vote on changes to policies and procedures, even though these seem to be fairly minor changes, they ultimately would require a vote of the general faculty, which would probably take place at the next general faculty meeting, unless we have something more urgent to send to general faculty in the meantime. So we'll vote on these today, but with the caveat that I believe, unless I'm corrected in that, parliamentarian is welcome to correct me if I'm incorrect in this, but I believe that what we're technically voting on is to send these to the general faculty at the next general faculty meeting. Jonathan.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in and mention that there's, I think it might be a little bit past where we are currently, but before I miss it, I think it's E.3, there's a mention of Department of Computer Science.
Yes, thank you. I got an email about that, and I'm glad you're bringing it up because I was going to bring it up to see if someone would make it a friendly amendment.
Which one is this? It's not in here. It's in the upcoming one.
Yeah, it's in the upcoming one. And
Oh yeah,
he was
we can
just
do a friendly.
okay. Thank you. It's
Okay,
not this one.
we need
It'll
to
be the
wait
next
for that?
one.
Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan, though. I appreciate you
Yeah.
thinking ahead. This one is fine the way it is.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, corrections that need to be made? If not, I think we're probably ready for the first in the series of 3 votes. So the first one is on Article 1, Section 1, Point C, Point 2, instructional components of the university.
Passes.
Very good. Okay, I think we're probably ready to proceed to the next item, which is the one that Jonathan commented on. So maybe we can scroll down.
Yeah, sorry. There were some abstentions, so I
Yeah,
had to
no problem. I
run
know
it
you're
down.
balancing a lot here with recording the
Okay.
votes, launching the polls, running the
So
technology.
this is Article 1, Section 1E dot dash 2 and 3.
Right.
Okay. And somewhere in this, I assume is a reference to the department that has been merged.
Yeah, the Department of Science
would-
and Mathematics.
So
I don't
can
see
scroll
that.
and maybe on the next
Oh wait,
page.
maybe it's down here.
Yeah, the Department of Computer Science. That should be changed to the Department of Computing and Mathematics, and would place that in as a friendly amendment. Then we don't have to redo it.
Yeah, I can do that. So Department of Computing and
Mathematics.
And that's page 427. And what is this? Section 1. Article 1, Section 1. E.233. Okay, I got it.
Thank you.
Very good. So seeing no further discussion on this, I think we're probably ready to launch the vote.
Passes.
Excellent. Okay, and last item from the Rules Committee, which is really very similar to these first 2 items, I believe. Same
And
general.
I believe we're
rule.
going to take these as a whole.
Yeah, I put them
Yes.
as a block because it's really just changing the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
Yeah.
making sure that the numbers, for whatever reason, we were halfway through and it switched back to A when it should have gone to K, and then it went A, B, C. So we're just switching letters, as well as the same thing that we've done before, which is having the wording be what will match what we've worded before, and changing election of non-senators to election of representatives.
Okay. Very good. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I think we're ready to launch the vote.
Passes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Angie. Appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you, team.
And actually, I forgot, you have 2 information items. I overlooked those. So the first one is a policy stat version of the faculty handbook. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes. I don't know if any of you've had a chance yet to look at the policy stat version of the Policies and Procedures Handbook, but one of the things that's been advanced to the Rules Committee that we felt before we began to tackle this, that we should bring it to the Senate, and that is that we would like to put the faculty handbook in the policy stat website also. So it would just have a link out to the faculty handbook, and that way we would not have to look different places for all the different policies and procedures. You could go to policy stat, you could click on policies and procedures, you could click on faculty handbook, and they're right there beside each other, so we could check discrepancies right at one website. And so I wanted to get approval from the Senate in order for us to start the process of transferring it and making changes.
Okay, I didn't realize this was an action item that was going to come up for a vote.
No,
So
I mean,
we
it's
may-
just, for them to think about, we'll turn it into an action item. I wanted to give them an opportunity to go out, look at policy stats, see if they like that whole issue, or they want to keep faculty separate. And we'll advance that next time.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to get feedback as people, and please feel free to email me, contact me.
Harry Nelson is also here, and I believe he had a presentation that he wanted to make.
Yes, he wanted to show everybody the policy handbook.
Okay, very
or
good.
policy
Well,
stat.
You should be able
I'll
to
turn
share,
things over to Harry then.
I think you're on mute.
Before everybody goes forward, let me do my other policy, my other information, and then I'll be finished. And that is that Jamie Brandenburg will be the chair of the Rules Committee next academic year, and she is the chair-elect this year.
Yes, well, thank you, Jamie. And Angie, I know you've put in more service than many chairs. Not, there are some chairs that stay on for a second year, but many do not, and you have. So I'm glad you have found someone who will be able to provide capable leadership in your absence after this. So thank you. Okay, Harry, the floor is yours if you would like to present on the policy stat version of the faculty handbook.
We can't hear you, Harry.
Is Harry there?
Yeah, he's there. I think you're having some technical difficulties with your microphone.
How about now? Is that better?
Oh, there you
go.
Oh, good, great. And I have to say, I'll be passing this off to Tara Pearson, who's developed this this version in Policy Stat. But just a quick introduction. In 2020, the Office of Legal Affairs started working on a project to make these handbooks more accessible. And so we started with both the staff handbook and the faculty handbook. And after we purchased the license for Policy Stat, we looked at how these would appear in Policy Stat. And so with that said, I'm going to pass the baton to Ms. Tara Pearson, and she can give us an overview.
Thank you, Harry. I hope everyone can hear me this morning or this afternoon. First of all, I'm Tara Pearson. I'm part of the policy team coming out of the Office of Legal Affairs. My cohort in crime is Teresa D'Amelio, who is hopefully on the call. If she's not, she will hopefully join us soon. If you are not familiar with Policy Stat, first let me take you to the screen where it's housed and where you can locate it so you can go out and log in and look at it. Because we have done a lot of work moving and trying to place and centralize all of the university policies and procedures. And I know we have a lot more work to do. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen at this time. So just a moment. Can everybody see my screen? It's coming up with Office of Legal Affairs.
Yep,
okay, great.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. Again, policy has been moved to Office of Legal Affairs. Office of Legal Affairs came into existence last year. And in Office of Legal Affairs, you are now finding records of information management, open records, contract management, and also Title IX is now in our office. But for policy, if you will go to the policy section and click on it, it'll take you to our policy site. And as I scroll down, on the left-hand side, you're going to see the policy and procedure user guide, the policy and procedure templates. If you decide to put forth policy and procedures at the university level, we'll be happy to work with you. But these are the templates to get you started. Also on the right-hand side, I know many of you have already started sending us comments when policies and procedures go up for review. And so I appreciate all of your comments that you've given us so far. And we want you to continue giving us your feedback because it only strengthens what the university does if we do it together. Also, to access Policy Stat, it says you'll go under Find a Policy. And this will take you to the Policy Stat landing page. We have grouped all of the university policies into 8 broad categories. And the ones that will be directly reflecting academic affairs and faculty the most is going to be coded as academic and research, which is going to be 2000 level. Policy Stat is hopefully going to help us with searchability. Right now, I'm going to type in, it is based on keywords. So if you want to find a policy that has a word, you can type in your word and it will search not just the name, but also the content of the policy as well. So that way, if it's cross-referenced in multiple areas, you're going to see everything. Also, let's say, for instance, freedom of expression. That gives you the category of where it's housed. The broad category, which is this one, is administration and governance. And if you click on it, it will take you straight to that policy. We can also use links inside this format. We also put down any associated procedures. If there are forms or documentation that needs to be added, we also can put them as attachments. So I know we've mentioned earlier that we want to look at the faculty handbook. And so for a limited time, I have moved your current faculty handbook into Policy Stat already so that y'all can go and look at it and give us feedback. And that way, if it becomes an action item, that we'll be more than happy to move this forward. But right now it is unrestricted and anyone can go in and look. If you have not gone to Policy Stat before, it will ask you for your single sign-on credentials first. And from that point on, you should be able to access Policy Stat without an issue. But right now, if you type in faculty handbook will come up. And we have taken everything that is in your current PDF form and went ahead and moved it into Policy Stat so that you're trying to compare apples to apples. On the left-hand side, you're going to see your table of contents, which also hyper jumps through the entire document. I did notice in your PDF faculty handbook that you had 2 documents, such as your student evaluation forms and your faculty personnel evaluation forms. And so I pulled them out of the actual document itself and made them attachments in case you want to download them or copy them. And then I referenced them up in the body of the text, basically saying, see attachment and then give it that way. It's also will cut down on the volume as well. When it comes to, I know some of us still like paper copies of our handbooks and everything. So up in the top, there are printer-friendly icons where you can either add a watermark as a copy or not. And it will give it to you so you can download it or print it out. That is what a PDF version is. So you can still get your paper copies. You can also email this as well as there's your email if you want to email someone. this link. And then also anything that's put in policy stat, any changes that are made have to be documented. So there's an audit trail of when changes were made, why changes were made, anything like that. So as far as archiving, we can do that if we need to for past versions. And we will be happy to work with the Faculty Senate on updating this annually if this is approved. It also gives us a policy stat, gives us a, I guess you would say a timeline where we can assign deadlines for review purposes. So for faculty handbook, I assume that you update this annually. So we would put a 365-day alert, and it would let us know that this is the time to upload or the new version or transition or make any changes. Also, the one good thing about policy stat that I want to let everyone know is we have sometimes issues across campus with bookmarking web pages or links, and then going back and they're dead links, and then we can't find the document anymore. If you want to bookmark or copy this link, as long as it has the word latest at the end of it, that will always give you the most up-to-date version of your handbook. So if you want to put it on the link to any website, anything like that, if you want to have any page go to any particular policy, any particular handbook that's in policy stat, as long as you link that word to the URL that has the word latest in it, it will always take you to the most up-to-date version, which is in policy stat. So we're not having duplicate versions or version control issues. It also helps with that as well. So I'm going to leave this link active, at least for the next week. If anybody would like to come look at it, I will go ahead and let you know that due to some formatting limitations in policy stat, there are probably around 5 sections that were slightly edited as far as having to move a paragraph above a certain place. But the content is the same. The meaning is the same, and that was changed just due to formatting issues and limitations of the system. It also is ADA compliant, so it also helps with screen readers, and we also have to have a set format, so it will help instead of having different versions, fonts, stuff like that. Everything is going to be the same, whether it's a policy or a handbook or anything like that, as long as it's in policy stat. Is there anything in particular or question that I can jump to in the handbook?
Well, I have a question. Tara, this was very helpful, and it looks like an excellent site. So we routinely update the faculty handbook throughout the year. Today, we didn't pass anything that would require a handbook update. Instead, we passed things that related to the policies and procedures manual, but at another Senate meeting, it's quite possible we would pass something that would affect the wording of something in the faculty handbook. And so traditionally, when those have been approved by the president, that is, the minutes of that Senate meeting have been approved by the president, then the changes are then made to the faculty handbook. So is that a process that could continue with this? Yes. Instead of an annual update, it would just be updated whenever there's a change, which might be periodically throughout the year, whenever the president approves minutes of a meeting that require that. And Colleen reminded me that actually there is an update to the handbook today. The APC item was something that requires an update to the handbook, perhaps. So is this something that there could be this ongoing update?
Well, it is my conversation. It has been my conversation, I think, with Harry Nelson and Teresa Daniello, that these are comments or changes that would happen probably monthly, at the very least. Is that correct? Any edits to the handbook?
That's always been my understanding. Yes.
Okay, so as long as they're not daily updates,
Yeah, they
I
wouldn't
think
be
we
up
can
daily
certainly
updates.
accommodate that as far as making the edits and changes. And we can notate that when we make those changes and updates in the system, as you know, per faculty senate minutes approval, and put those comments down at the bottom, and let you know if any changes that have occurred. If you see, I'm going to show you my screen right now. If you see down at the bottom, it'll see the history. So any changes that's made to that document, and gives you a date, who made that change, and what changes were made. So yes, we will be happy to work with the faculty senate in making those updates.
Well, very good. It seems like a very helpful site, in my view, at least. Any comments or questions from anyone else regarding this presentation? If not, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I just wanted to let you know, if you are not sure of a word, particularly to search, the other areas that you can search is by title. That gives you all the policies and procedures under G. Then also, like I said, you can search by the broad areas that we have, as well as the chief or responsible office of that policy or procedure. And we're also talking with Human Resources about moving the employee handbook as well into Policy Stat. So it's not the only handbook that would probably live in Policy Stat right now.
Okay, very good. Blend, I think you have a hand raised, so I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you. I might have missed this, but is this a publicly available site, searchable site? I had to do my one login, I think, to access this, and maybe that's just because it's in beta.
Yes, you can, if you go to the URL for PolicyStat is uwg.policystat.com. And if you click there, because you've never logged into PolicyStat, it will ask you at least the first time to for your single sign-on credentials. And then after that, I think you should be able to just move forward and just go straight to the site and search it. It shouldn't ask you for your credentials every time you visit the site.
Would prospective employees be able to see the faculty handbook just if they had questions about what UWG? In other words, is this a publicly accessible faculty handbook?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Thank you.
And the reason being is for the public, we have to link to we're using a public link. So obviously we know that the public is not going to have UWG credentials. And so we want to be as transparent as possible, but not just with our handbooks, but with our university policies and procedures as well.
Very good. Anything else? Okay, if not, thank you to both of you. And I do not have any agenda items for old business or new business this month. If there's anyone who has an announcement that you want us to, anything you want to know about, anything you want others to know about on the Faculty Senate, this is your chance. Last call for any items that people want to bring to our attention quickly before we close. Baruch.
I had a quick question, Mr. Chairman, which is that when do we get back to meeting in person?
The Faculty Senate voted last April, I believe, March or April, to continue meeting via Zoom all of this year. That could always be revisited if people want. But the reason for that was that, I mean, there were a number of reasons for it, but one in particular that came up in the discussion was the fact that there are so many people on the Zoom call and the live stream that it's common that our live stream, for example, might have 150 viewers. So much larger contingent of faculty are able to participate than could ever participate in an in-person setting. Unless we do anything to change it, the answer would be that we would at least meet via this format for the rest of this year. If someone wants to, if someone dislikes that, we can always revisit it. The language that we adopted said, unless there's a vote, something along the lines of unless there's a vote to change this. So it could certainly be revisited if someone wants to revisit it. But that was the reasoning. It wasn't just because of COVID. It was because of the level of participation that's possible in these Zoom calls. Plus, I think with senators, we've had a much higher rate of participation as well, because many people who might be traveling or might not be able to come to campus for an in-person meeting are able to fully participate via the Zoom session. So that would be the reasoning on that, and that would be the policy that would guide us. Again, if you have concerns about that or want the Senate to revisit it, we could certainly revisit it. It would come back through the executive committee, I guess. So you could bring it to the attention of the executive committee, and then the executive committee could discuss it and bring a recommendation to the Senate.
Yeah, thank you. I'm perfectly happy with the format. I merely asked because I'm a new senator now, effective this July 1.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. That's good for everyone to know. Anything else? Glenn, I see your hand is up, but I think it's probably from the last from the last session. If not, you can lower it and raise it, and I'll recognize you. Anything else that anyone wants to raise with us before we close the meeting? If not, I think we are ready to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great afternoon.
It's a new record, by the way, 3:30.
I know we got out of here in this short time. Thank you.